Hello and welcome to today's edition of the Daf Yomi. I hope you are well and all is good on your side. So today's Daf is Nazir Daf 4. And I'm going to give a slightly new format. I'm going to give a quick introduction study guide. One who claims this is my son is considered credible. One who claims this is my brother is not. This distinction is important for inheritance and Levite marriage laws. If the person claiming someone is their brother dies, the inheritance the claimed brother received reverts to the claimant. However, if the claimed brother received property from elsewhere, all the claimant's brothers inherit. The husband's claim that he divorced his wife is generally accepted. However, there is a debate about whether this applies to retroactive claims of divorce, where the husband claimed he divorced his wife in the past. Some teachers believe that the husband is only credible with regard to future divorce claims. Others believe his statement can be divided, accepting the future divorce claim but rejecting the past one. The Talmud used the incident at Beit Horon to illustrate the principle that a gift must be absolute for it to be valid. In this incident, a son tried to give his property to a friend temporarily so his father, who was forbidden from benefiting from him, could participate in a wedding meal. However, the friend consecrated the property, leading to a dispute. The sage concluded that a gift that cannot be consecrated by the sibling is not a valid gift. Yonatan ben Uziah was the greatest of Hillel, the eldest 80 students. He was so dedicated to Torah that any bird flying over him would be incinerated. Even the least of the Hillel students, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, was incredibly knowledgeable in various areas of Jewish law and wisdom. This shows the importance placed on Torah study and the high level of scholarship among the sages. Okay, so that was a quick study guide. So let's dive straight into the daf. Harei mushba ba'omed olav mahasinai. He's already sworn. So what's the footnote there? The version of the Gemara text is difficult. The plain meaning of the Gemara seems to indicate that one is obligated from Mount Sinai to drink the wine from Kiddush and Abdullah, the commentary on Nazir. This fits well with the version of Shilatot that states that there is a mitzvah by Torah to mention Shabbat over wine in the beginning, in Kiddush, and at the end during Havdalah. According to this opinion, the Gemara refused the possibility that the verse teaches that a Nazirite is prohibited from drinking wine Havdalah, from drinking Kiddush and Abdullah wine. And the early authorities of Ashkenaz ruled accordingly. A different interpretation, also based on this version of the text, is that just as the Gemara states that a Nazirite cannot be viewed as beautiful if his Naziriteship involves a transgression 2b, the Torah would likewise have refrained from praising a Nazirite if his vow meant that he could not drink the wine of Kiddush and Abdullah. That's Rabbeinu Peres. However, most commentaries reject these opinions, since it is evident from other sources that although Kiddush is a mitzvah by Torah law, the use of wine is by rabbinic law. This is certainly the case with regard to reciting Abdullah over wine. Furthermore, since one can recite Kiddush over bread or fulfill the mitzvah by listening to the Kiddush of another individual, the drinking of Kiddush wine cannot be seen as an act that is incumbent upon one from Mount Sinai, and that should therefore be permitted to a Nazirite. Consequently, many commentaries accept a different version of the text, attributed to Rabbeinu Tam, according to which the Gemara asks rhetorically, is he already sworn from Mount Sinai? In other words, it is obvious that a Nazirite may not drink wine from Kiddush or Abdullah, but there is no mitzvah by Torah law to drink this wine. The Rosh and most commentators explain the text in this manner. The Rambam, in his respondent 120, explained the Gemara differently. It is obvious that the mitzvah of Kiddush over wine is by rabbinic law. The words he is already sworn about from Mount Sinai refer not to the mitzvah of Kiddush and Abdullah over wine, but to the prohibition of Naziriteship. The Gemara is then saying, if you say that this halacha teaches that the Nazirite is prohibited from drinking Kiddush wine, that is not a novelty, since Kiddush is a rabbinic mitzvah, whereas a Nazirite is sworn by Torah to uphold his vow of Naziriteship. And he's obligated about it from Mount Sinai, i.e. he's obligated by Torah to keep the halacha of Naziriteship, and therefore it's obvious that he may not drink wine from Kiddush or Abdullah, as drinking the wine is required by rabbinic law. That's in the Rambam. Rather, it is like that. What's the footnote there? If one takes an oath that he will drink wine today, and subsequently takes a Nazirite vow, the Nazirite vow takes effect and supersedes the oath, and it is therefore prohibited for him to drink wine. And that's when the Rambam says, "For Flora Hilchon Nazirit 7:11, which Rabbi said, if one said, I hereby take an oath that I would drink wine, and then he said, sorry, this was the footnote before, rather it's like that. This version of the text does not make sense according to the commentators who explain that the Nazarite is considered to have sworn from outside to perform Kiddushin Hadallah with wine. The Rosh explained that according to that opinion, the word rather should be omitted. The Rabbi's statement is a continuation of the previous argument. The Gemara is then providing proof that the prohibition of Nazarite takes precedence over the mitzvah of wine of Kiddush and Havdalah. We're demonstrating that the prohibition of Nazarite takes precedence over an oath to drink wine. However, others explain that according to these commentaries, although a Nazarite is not prohibited from drinking the wine of Kiddush and Havdalah, he is prohibited from drinking wine that took an oath to drink. And that's from the Meiri citing Rashi commentary on Nazir, see the Rashba. I'm here by Nazarite. Nazarite comes and applies to the subject of his oath. The Rashba, in his response in 409, explains the Gemara in the following manner. A Nazarite vow prohibits the Nazarite from consuming wine, and also takes effect with regard to the wine itself, and causes the wine to be considered forbidden vis-a-vis the Nazarite. In this regard, a Nazarite vow is similar to other vows, which render an item forbidden. By contrast, oaths create an obligation or a prohibition that applies to the person who took it. Dom 2b. Consequently, even if the individual has already obligated himself to drink wine, the wine itself becomes forbidden item due to his Nazarite vow. He may not fulfill his oath by drinking the wine. However, it is explained in the Meiri that a Nazarite vow is like an oath that applies only to the individual, prohibiting him from consuming wine, but does not affect the state of the wine itself. The verse teaches that Nazarite overrides one's earlier oath, as it is more inclusive and powerful than a regular oath. Although drinking wine is a mitzvah for him due to his oath, his Nazarite supersedes the previous oath and renders it prohibited for him to drink wine. The Gemara asks, according to the rabbis also, isn't the verse needed to prohibit to a Nazarite wine that is consumed as a mitzvah, just like wine whose consumption is optional? The Gemara answers, if that is so, let the verse say only he shall abstain from wine in Numbers 6:3. What is the purpose of the additional phrase, and strong drink? Learn from it that the verse teaches two halachot. One, that one is a full-fledged Nazarite, even if he accepted only one of the prohibitions of Nazariteship, and that a Nazarite is prohibited from drinking wine even when its consumption is a mitzvah. The Gemara explains, and Rabbi Shimon could respond to this argument as follows. This is the reason that the verse writes strong drink. It is to teach a verbal analogy between strong drink written here and strong drink written with regard to entering and performing service in the temple. As it is written that Aaron the priest was commanded, do not drink wine or strong drink, you nor your sons with you, when you go into the tent of meeting, Leviticus 10:9. This teaches just as with a Nazarite, is the wine alone that's forbidden. It's prohibited for a Nazarite to consume wine or any product that contains grape derivatives. However, it is permitted for him to drink strong drinks made from figs or other produce. That's from the Rambam Sefer Fly Hook and Nazir 5:1. But other beverages are not forbidden. So too with regard to the temple. This does not mean that a priest is permitted to perform the service when he is drunk from some other intoxicating beverage, since the total prohibition applies to all intoxicating drinks. Rather, one who drinks other beverages and proceeds to serve in the temple is not liable to death in the hand of heaven, which is the punishment reserved for one who performs the temple service while drunk from wine, and that's from the Shita Mechubezet. It's wine that is forbidden to priests, but other intoxicating beverages are not forbidden to them. And this is to the exclusion of the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, as is taught in a Braita. The Rabbi Yehuda says, if one ate a dried fig from Kilia, so what's that mean? A priest who becomes drunk from any intoxicating beverage is prohibited from entering the temple. If he performs service in the temple after drinking an intoxicating beverage other than wine, he is liable to receive lashes, though his service is valid. If he performs the service after drinking wine, his service is invalid and he is liable to death at the hand of heaven. The halach is according to Rabbi Yehuda, that's the Rambam Sefer Avod Hilchot Beit HaMikdash 2:1. Tevela Ke'ilis, a dried fig from Kilia. This refers to dried figs from the town of Kilia in Judea. Apparently the figs in this area contain a high level of sugar. Other places in the town would tell of how honey would drip from the figs and ferment, turning into alcohol. Even without fermentation, ingesting a large amount of sugar can cause mouth poisoning, which may be due to an inability of the liver to process a large amount of sugar fast enough. This causes feelings of nausea and dizziness similar to what one might feel after drinking hard liquor. And similarly, if one drank honey or one drank milk, which can dull the senses, and enter the temple, he is liable for violating prohibition against strong drink. The Gemara suggests a different reason for the inclusion of the term strong drink according to Rabbi Shimon. If you would say instead that it is necessary because Rabbi Shimon does not generally accept the principle that a prohibition takes effect upon a pre-existing prohibition. The commentators struggle to account for the relevance of the principle to the discussion. The Rid even concludes that the text of this entire section has been corrupted. It is explained in the commentary on Nazir that the discussion in the Gemara is referring to Rabbi Shimon's opinion in the Mishnah. The Gemara is explaining that once one is prohibited by a vow from eating grape seeds, then a Nazirite vow, which also prohibits him from eating such seeds, cannot take effect. Tosfot maintain that the Gemara is offering an alternative explanation as to what Rabbi Shimon learned from the term strong drink. According to his explanation, although Rabbi Shimon generally holds that a prohibition does not take effect where another prohibition already exists, the extra term in the verse indicates that Naziriteship is an exception to this principle. And accordingly, if one took an oath not to drink wine and then took a Nazirite vow and then drank wine, he is punished with lashes twice. That's from the Rabbeinu Peret and Rabbeinu Azriel cited Meshitu Mechbes. The Rosh attributes an opposing explanation to Rabbeinu Tam. Rabbi Shimon learns from the term strong drink that if a Nazirite drinks wine on Yom Kippur, he is liable only for transgressing his vow of Nazirite for not eating on Yom Kippur, but not for eating on Yom Kippur. This serves as a source for Rabbi Shimon's opinion that one prohibition does not take effect when there is a pre-existing prohibition. As is taught in the Bible, Rabbi Shimon says one who eats an animal carcass. The commentators explain that this halacha applies only if the animal died before Yom Kippur, in which case the prohibition against eating an animal carcass took effect before the prohibition of eating Yom Kippur took effect. If, however, he died on Yom Kippur itself, then he is liable for eating Yom Kippur. On Yom Kippur is exempt from the punishment of karet for eating on Yom Kippur. It is prohibited to eat an animal carcass, and therefore the additional prohibition against eating on Yom Kippur does not take effect. With regard to it, the inclusion of the term strong drink alludes to the fact that with regard to Naziriteship, a second prohibition does not take effect. Consequently, if one took an oath not to drink wine and afterward vowed to be a Nazirite, both prohibitions apply, the Gemara asks. And also, according to the rabbis, isn't it written anything made of the grapevine, Numbers 6:4, which seems to indicate, as stated by Rabbi Shimon, that one becomes a Nazirite only if he vows to accept all the prohibitions of a Nazirite? The Gemara answers, the rabbis could have said to you, there the verse taught that the prohibition of a Nazirite combine with each other. All the different types of grapes that are forbidden to Nazirite combine with each other to make up one measurement. For example, if a Nazirite ate moist grapes with dried ones, unripe ones, grape seeds or grape skins, and if he ate a total volume of an olive bulb, he is liable to receive lashes. Similarly, if a Nazirite drank a quarter log of a mixture of wine and of vinegar made of wine, he receives lashes. Rambam Sefer for Hilchot Nazir 5:3. In other words, if a Nazirite eats less than an olive bulk of both grapes and grape skins, but together they amount to an olive bulk, he receives lashes for transgressing the prohibition. The Gemara explains, and Rabbi Shimon does not interpret the verse in this manner because he does not hold, and there is a need for the combination of quantities of different foods in order to render one liable to receive lashes. Taught in the Bible, Rabbi Shimon says, even if the smallest quantity of forbidden food is sufficient to render one liable, even the smallest quantity of forbidden food is sufficient to render one liable to receive lashes. The sage stated the measurement of an olive bulk only with regard to the obligation to bring an offering. Consequently, in the case of a Nazirite who is not obligated to bring a sin offering if he inadvertently eats grape products, there is no need for a special verse to teach that different foods add up to the measurement of an olive bulk. Therefore, the purpose of the verse must be to teach about the nature of a Nazirite vow. If one said, I am like Samson, what does that mean? If one says, I'm hereby a Nazirite like Samson, or I'm Delilah's husband, or I'm a son of Manoah, or I am like the one who tore the doors of Gaza, or I am like the one whose eyes were gouged out by the Philistines, he is a Nazirite. Some authorities in the commentary on Nazir Tosfot B'Kudei Halachot claim that one becomes a Nazirite only if he said, I am like Samson, or I am like Samson ben Manoah. and added a modifier. For example, like the one who took all the doors of Gaza, Rambam Sefer Fly, Hilchot Nazirut 3:15. Like the son of Manoah, like the husband of Delilah, like the one who tore off the doors of Gaza. What does that mean? Kemesha Aka, like the one who tore off. That's what explain that one who says that he would be like Samson or like the son of Manoah must add an additional identifying feature in order to clarify referring to Samson of the Bible, such as the husband of Delilah, or the one who tore the doors of Gaza, or the one whose eyes were caught up by the Philistines. Rabbeinu Tam slightly amended the text of the mission to reflect this point. Like the one whose eyes were gorged out by the Philistines, he is Nazarite like Samson, whose Lachlan explained in the next mission, see Judges chapter 13 to 16. The Gemara asks, why do I need the time to teach all of these cases? It should be enough to state only the halacha where one says like Samson. The Gemara answers these specifications are necessary. Because one said only I'm hereby like Samson. This indicates that one who says I am like Samson, or even I am like Samson, son of Manoah, without further specification, is not a Nazarite unless he identified the biblical figure beyond any possible doubt. One does not have to mention all the examples listed in the Mishnah. Any one of them suffices. Let's see the commentary on Nazir Rabbeinu Tam. According to the Rid, if one simply said I am like Samson, he is a Nazarite like Samson. However, if he then explains that he had another Samson in mind, the court cannot compel him to adhere to the halacha of a Nazarite, whereas if he clearly identified Samson of the Bible, then he's definitely a Nazarite. The Rambam's ruling indicates a similar understanding. By contrast, the Meiri slightly adjusts the text of the Gemara and explains that anyone who intended to become a Nazarite and employed any one of the terms mentioned in the Mishnah has thereby taken a Nazarite vow. This opinion is supported by the Jewish Talmud, where it is explained that not only does the explicit mention of Samson, Shimon into Nazariteship, but the same is true even of substitute languages of his name, Shimshur Ushimshus. I will say that he's referring to another Samson, and this is not a Nazarite vow. The Tana therefore teaches that he adds like the son of Manoah, which shows that he's referring to the biblical Samson. And if the Tana had taught that he would be like the son of Manoah, I would say that there is some person who is called that name, Samson, son of Manoah, and this is not a reference to the biblical Samson, and it is not an acceptance of Nazariteship. Therefore, teaches us that he adds like the husband of Delilah, or on top of the doors of Gaza, or like the one whose eyes were gouged out by the Philistines. It is therefore clear that he's referring to the biblical figure, and that his statement is a vow of Nazariteship. What is the difference between a permanent Nazarite? The early commentators point out that the Tana could have added another difference, i.e. the vow of a Nazarite like Samson cannot be dissolved, as explained below in 14.8. Tosfot explained that the Tana does not mention this difference because he was dealing with differences that apply specifically to Nazarites, and the Nazarite whose vow has been dissolved is not a Nazarite. See Rabbeinu Todos cited in Shuti Mekubeses. And the Nazarite like Samson, both of whom remain Nazarites forever. In the case of a permanent Nazarite, one who vowed to be a permanent Nazarite may shave his hair once every 12 months. If his hair gets too heavy, he then brings 3 animals as offerings. If he becomes impure, he must bring an offering for his impurity and shave his head like a regular Nazarite. Sefer 3:12. If his hair grows too heavy for him, he lightens it by cutting off some hair with a razor. Mekel Basar. Some commentaries explain that a permanent Nazarite may trim his hair but not completely shave it off. Their proof is the fact that Absalom, who is the paradigm of permanent Nazarite, was hung by his hair. This shows that his hair was not shaved off. The Meiri adds that he may use only a razor but not scissors, so that he cuts it in an unusual manner. However, Rabbeinu Todos cited in Shuti Mekubeses says that citing Rabbi Elazar admits that he may shave his hair entirely, and the Rambam seems to agree. Needless to say, he must be careful not to get the prohibition against rounding of the corners of his head. Some commentators hold that he may trim his hair once every 30 days. Commentary on Nazir, Rambam rules that he may do so only once every 12 months. And he brings 3 animals, who may be shlosh behemoths. Tosfot explained that the support for this halacha can be seen in the case of Absalom. As it is written that Absalom said that he was going to Hebron to pay my vow in 2 Shmuel 15:7, which implies the sacrifice of offerings. However, the halacha itself is transmitted to Moses from Sinai. Other commentators write that this halacha cannot be derived from Absalom, since since the verses can be explained in a manner that has no connection to Nazirite as a sin offering, a burnt offering, a peace offering, like the one who completes his terms of Nazirite. And if he becomes ritually impure, he brings the offering of impurity brought by a regular Nazirite, he becomes impure. By contrast, in the case of a Nazirite like Samson, if his head grows heavy, he may not lighten it. Since he's entirely prohibited from cutting his hair, and he becomes impure, he does not bring an offering for impurity. The Gemara asks, who mentioned anything about a permanent Nazirite? Since the Mishnah has not yet mentioned this concept, how can it analyze differences between it and a Nazirite like Samson? The Gemara answers, the Mishnah is incomplete as teaching the following. Hasture michasra v'hachi kesane. This phrase, which appears extensively in the Gemara, does not indicate a proposal to amend the text of the Mishnah. While the addition mentioned in the Gemara is an elaboration upon which is written in the Mishnah, which is unclear as written, the addition facilitates understanding of the Mishnah. In the case of one who says, I'm hereby a permanent Nazirite, some commentators add that one is also a permanent Nazirite if he said that he'd be like Absalom, son of David. The Gemara does not mention this case, because not everyone knows that Absalom was a permanent Nazirite, whereas Samson is famous for his Naziriteship. Rabbeinu Azriel cited Mishitim Mekubesa Sidim Iri. He's a permanent Nazirite. What is the difference between a permanent Nazirite and a Nazirite like Samson? In the case of permanent Nazirite, if his hair grows too heavy for him, he lightens it with a razor, and then he brings 3 animals for offerings. If he becomes ritually impure, he brings the offering of impurity. In the case of Nazirite like Samson, if his hair grows heavy, he may not lighten it with a razor, but he does not bring the offering for impurity. The Gemara comments from the words, but if he becomes impure, he does not bring an offering for impurity. One can infer that it is an offering that he does not bring. However, all the prohibitions of Naziriteship apply to him. The ability for him to become impure from a corpse. So what's the footnote there? Nazir Chayala. A similar question appears in the parallel discussion in the Jewish Talmud. The Gemara there infers from the Mishnah that although a Nazirite, like Samson, does not have to bring an offering if he becomes impure from a corpse, he is liable to receive lashes. This leads to the following question. Wait 1 second. Whose opinion is expressed in the Mishnah? It is not the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, not the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, as taught in the Bible. Rabbi Yehuda says, a Nazirite like Samson is permitted to become impure from a corpse ab initio. It is prohibited for a Nazirite like Samson to drink wine and cut his hair, but he may become impure from a corpse. This halacha is learned by tradition according to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, Rambam Sefer Nazir 3:13. As we find with Samson that he became impure, Rabbi Shimon says, one who says that he will be a Nazirite like Samson not said anything, since we do not find with Samson that an utterance of a vow of Naziriteship left his mouth. Samson never took a vow to become Nazirite. He received the statement from the angel's instructions to his mother. See Judges 13:5. Consequently, Rabbi Shimon holds that one who vows to be a Nazirite like Samson is not considered to take a Nazirite vow. The Gemara explains the question, whose opinion is expressed in the Mishnah? If it is the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, didn't he say that it's permitted for a Nazirite of this kind to become impure from a corpse, even ab initio? But the Mishnah teaches if he becomes impure, which indicates that he is prohibited from doing so ab initio. However, if he said the Mishnah is according to the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, didn't he say that a Nazirite should not apply to him at all? The Gemara answers, actually the Mishnah is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. And a Nazirite like Samson may become impure from a corpse, even ab initio. And since it teaches with regard to a permanent Nazirite, impure as it's prohibited for a permanent Nazirite to become impure from a corpse ab initio, the Tana also taught the same expression with regard to Nazirite like Samson and used the expression if he becomes impure. The Gemara suggests, let us say that Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon disagree with regard to the issue that is the subject of the dispute between the Tanaim, as we learn in the Brayta. If one says, this object is hereby forbidden to me like a firstborn, what does that mean? If one declares, an object forbidden to him like a firstborn animal, it's permitted for him to use the object. The forbidden state of a firstborn cannot be extended to other items because its forbidden state is not initiated by man. This is consistent with the principle that the halacha is according to Rabbi Yossi's opinion when he disagrees with a colleague. Sefer Hechanadam 113. Bechor was the firstborn. A firstborn male offspring of a cow, sheep, or goat belonging to a Jew is consecrated from birth. It must be given to a priest to be sacrificed in the altar in the temple, and its meat is then eaten by the priest and their families. Numbers 18:17 to 18. For firstborn animal develops a physical blemish that is qualified for being sacrificed as an offering, it may be slaughtered and eaten like any other non-sacred kosher animal. Nevertheless, it still has to be given to a priest. It is prohibited to intentionally inflict a disqualifying blemish on a firstborn animal, and it may not be used for any mundane purpose, even if it is blemished. It is prohibited to work the animal, and its fleece may not be used. Since the destruction of the second temple, a firstborn animal continues to be considered consecrated. However, since it cannot be sacrificed in the temple, it may be slaughtered only if it has a marked disqualifying blemish. Various halachic devices are employed to restrict the classification of animals as firstborn and limit the slaughter as non-sacred animals after they acquire disqualifying blemishes. Rabbi Yaakov prohibits the individual from deriving benefit from the object, as he holds that a vow of this sort is valid. And Rabbi Yossi permits it because the sanctity of a firstborn is not the result of a vow or sanctification. Rather, it is sacred of its own accord, and therefore its forbidden status cannot be extended by means of a vow to other items. What is it not the case that Rabbi Huda holds in contrary to Rabbi Yaakov, who said that in order for a vow to take effect, we do not require one to extend the forbidden state of an item rendered forbidden by means of a vow. Consequently, just as one can render an object forbidden by extending it to it the sanctity of a firstborn animal, one can become a Nazirite by accepting upon himself the state of Samson, whose prohibitions were not established by a vow. And Rabbi Shimon holds, in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yossi, who said that in order for a vow to take effect, we do require one to extend the forbidden state of an item rendered forbidden by means of a vow. Consequently, one cannot become a Nazirite by accepting upon himself the state of Samson. The Gemara responds, no, it can be explained that everyone agrees. Two explanations of this passage are offered by the Meiri. According to one opinion, the term everyone includes all the sages mentioned in this passage, i.e. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Yaakov, Rabbi Yossi. This assumes that Samson is considered to be rendered a Nazirite through a vow. Tosfot Rabbeinu Peretz, Rosh Rabbeinu Azriel, Side Mishik Besses. Alternatively, everyone includes only Rabbi Yaakov and Rabbi Yossi. However, Rabbi Yehuda, who argued that a vow takes effect if one declares that he will be a Nazirite, Samson holds that one can extend the forbidden state of an item whose own forbidden status is not caused by a vow sheet that we require one to extend the forbidden status of an item rendered forbidden by means of a vow. The basic vow stated in the Torah refers to a statement through which one renders an item forbidden to himself by extending it to the forbidden state of another item that is already forbidden by a vow. For an example is in the case of one who says, this is forbidden for me like an offering, as a process of consecrating an animal as an offering is a type of vow. And according to Rabbi Yaakov, halacha is different with regard to a firstborn, as is written about this in the verse pertaining to vows. When a man vows a vow to the Lord in Numbers 33, it comes to include the firstborn and teach that since the firstborn is consecrated, its status is comparable to animals designated as offerings by means of a vow, and one can extend this forbidden status to another item. And Rabbi Yossi could have said to you in response that he needs that expression to the Lord to include a sin offering and a guilt offering. One may not obligate himself to bring these offerings by means of a vow. They are brought only when one becomes liable due to transgression. Nevertheless, one can take a vow by extending to another the forbidden state of a sin offering or guilt offering. The Gemara questions Rabbi Yossi's explanation. And what did you see that indicated to you to include a sin offering and a guilt offering and to exclude a firstborn? The Gemara answers, I include a sin offering and a guilt offering. So what does that mean? Everyone says this food is like a sin offering to me, or this food is like a guilt offering to me. The food is forbidden to him. A sin offering and guilt offering are comparable to items forbidden by a vow. Although one cannot voluntarily vow to bring these offerings, he can render himself liable to bring them by vowing to be a Nazirite. All the more so, can one take a vow by extending the forbidden state of other offerings, such as a burnt offering or a peace offering, which one can volunteer to bring via a vow, in Dom 110. As one grants consecrated status to the animals designated for these offerings by means of a vow, the act of designating specific animals for these offerings is comparable to taking a vow, and I exclude a firstborn, as one is not granted consecrated status by means of a vow. And Rabbi Yaakov could have said to you in response, also in the case of a firstborn, one grants it consecrated status by means of a vow, as it is told in the Brisa. The sages of the house of our rabbi, Rabbi Huda Nasi, said, from where is it derived that when a firstborn male is born in one's herd, The measure to pronounce one's firstborn kosher animal to be consecrated in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Huda and Nasi. However, if one fails to consecrate his firstborn animal, it is consecrated automatically. That's the Rambam Sefer Kabbalah and Hilchot Brachot 1:4 Shulchan Aruch Yerodei 361. There is a mitzvah to consecrate it, although it is consecrated from the time it is born. As is stated, all firstborn males that are born to your herd and to your flock you shall sanctify. Deuteronomy 15:19. And Rabbi Yossi could have said in response, granted that there is a mitzvah to consecrate it, but if he does not consecrate it, it is not consecrated of his own accord. Since the firstborn is forbidden principally because of its inherent sanctity, and not because of a vow, one cannot express a vow by extending the firstborn's forbidden status to another item. The Gemara asks, both Rabbi Yaakov and Rabbi Yossi agree that the phrase to the Lord indicates that one can take a vow by associating the object of his vow with an item whose prohibitions do not stem from a vow, with regard to Nazirite as well. The Gemara's question is as follows. Since the verse states to the Lord, why is it important to extend the forbidden state of an item forbidden by a vow, come to another? According to this opinion, the Gemara's question applies to both Rabbi Yaakov and Rabbi Yossi. Tosfot explained that the question is referring to Rabbi Yaakov's opinion, and just as he holds that the phrase to the Lord written with regard to a regular vow includes the first one, here too it should include a Nazirite like Samson with regard to Nazirite. Isn't it written, shall clearly utter a vow, the vow of the Nazirite, to consecrate himself to the Lord? Number 6.2. Why doesn't Rabbi Shimon derive from this verse that one can become Nazirite by accepting the Nazirite-ship of Samson, despite the fact that Samson did not accept his Nazirite-ship by means of a vow? The Gemara answers that phrase required by him for that which is taught in the Bride, Shimon HaTzadik. Shimon HaTzadik or Shimon HaRighteous is the first that he's mentioned in the train transmission in Tractate Avot 1:2. He is described there as one of the remnants of the great assembly. According to Josephus, his full name was Shimon ben Honio ben Yadur. Based on the few mentions of him in the Talmud, it seems that he was the high priest during the beginning of the Greek rule in Eretz Yisrael and was the one who received Alexander Macedon when he came to conquer Eretz Yisrael. Several tales are told about him in Josephus' Antiquities, and he is praised at the end of the book of Ben Sira. It is possible that Ben Sira had contact with Shimon HaTzadik. That book also describes that Shimon HaTzadik came out of the Holy of Holies on Yom Kippur, a description later inserted into the list on Yom Kippur. Ben Sira further relates how Shimon HaTzadik rebuilt the ruins of Jerusalem and initiated the building of the wall of the temple. He is lauded in the Jerusalem town for his righteousness and piety, and the Tosefta in 13:8 states that after him, the priests of the temple would no longer say God's ineffable name in the priestly blessing, so the sage did not think that the people were worthy of it. Said, in all my days as a priest, I never ate the guilt offering of a richly impure Nazirite. The reason for this policy is that he was considered that many people who took Nazirite vows did so impetuously. In the case of one who became impure and would therefore have to start his term of Nazirite from the beginning, there was an even greater concern that he would regret his initial vow. Since regret can serve as the basis for notifying a vow, Shimon HaTzadik considered the Nazirite vow as though it was almost nullified, in which case the offering would be necessary and invalid, apart from the offering of one man who came to me from the south. Adoram, the south, is a reference to the southern part of Eretz Yisrael. In the time of Shimon HaTzadik, when most of the Jewish population of Eretz Yisrael was in Judea, south was the term for the southern part of that region, south of Hebron and adjacent to the northern border of Edom. Whose beautiful eyes and fine countenance and his locks were arranged in curls, I said to my son, what did you see to become a Nazirite, which would force you to destroy this beautiful hair? As Nazirite must cut off all of his hair at the conclusion of his term. He said to me, I was a shepherd from my father in my town, and I went to draw water from the spring, and I looked at my reflection in the water, and my evil inclination quickly rose against me and sought to drive me from the world. What does that mean? It is explained in the Me'iri on Tract in the Dom 9b, that once the youth realized how beautiful he was, his evil inclination tempted him with lust for women. The explanation found in the Aruch is that the evil inclination tempted him to engage in homosexual relations. According to the Marashah on Tract in the Dom 9b, when this person perceives his own beauty, He considered it beneath his dignity to continue working as a lowly shepherd, despite the fact that abandoning this work would cause dishonor to his parents. By contrast, some commentators maintain that he was tempted to worship himself as a form of idolatry. Rabbeinu Azria and the rich said to Mishi to Mekubeses, I said to my imagination, empty one, for what reason are you proud in the world that is not yours, as your end is to be maggots and worms when you die? I swear by the temple service that I will become a Nazirite and shave you for the sake of heaven. Shimon Aselik relates, when I heard his response, I rose and kissed him on the head and said to him, may there be more Nazirites like you in Israel. If one undertakes a vow in order to improve his character and correct his ways, it is considered praiseworthy. Examples of this include a glutton who renders meat forbidden to him, a drunkard who takes a vow rendering wine forbidden to him, and one who is proud of his beauty and undertakes Naziriteship. However, it is inadvisable to take many vows. It is preferable to improve one's character without the use of a vow. Rambam Sefer Hilchot Nedam 13:23-24 Shulchan Aruch Yehuda 203:7. Whose intentions are noble and who would not regret their vow of Nazirship even if it became impure. With regard to you, the verse states, when either a man or a woman shall clearly utter a vow, the vow of a Nazirite, to consecrate himself to the Lord, in Numbers 6:2, the verse speaks of a vow that is not undertaken out of anger or spite, but purely for the sake of God. The phrase to the Lord in this context means for the sake of heaven. It cannot be used to teach that if one declares his intention to become a Nazirite like Samson, a statement constitutes a Nazirite vow. The Gemara challenges the assumption that Samson's Naziriteship was not accepted to a vow, and was Samson not a Nazirite? In other words, although Samson did not take a Nazirite vow, perhaps his father understood from the angel that he must declare his son a Nazirite, as the Gemara 28b explains that one can take a Nazirite vow on behalf of his son, see Tosfot. Alternatively, perhaps Samson decided to accept Naziriteship upon himself in the form of a vow. Rabbeinu Azriel said to Mekubeses, whose Naziriteship was accepted by a vow, it is not written, for a child shall be a Nazirite of God from the womb, in Judges 13:5. Commentators claim that Rabbeinu Azriel had a slightly inversion of this text, in which the Gemara cites a verse spoken by Samson himself, I am a Nazirite to God, in Judges 16:17. This indicates that he was a proper Nazirite. These commentators reject this explanation, however, since here too Samson is not uttering a vow, but merely recounting what the angel said to his mother. The Gemara answers, there was the angel who spoke. Samson's Naziriteship did not stem from a vow uttered by a human being. The Gemara asks, from where do we derive that Samson became impure from corpses? If we say that it's from the fact that it is written, and Samson said, with the jawbone of an ass, what does that mean? The Rosh explains that this suggestion can easily be countered by saying that since Samson acted in self-defense as the Philistines came to kill him, he was certainly permitted to become impure. He explains that the Gemara raises this possibility only as an introduction to the second, more persuasive answer. I smote 1,000 men, Judges 15:16. Perhaps he thrust the jawbone at them, but he did not touch them and remained pure. What does that mean? Guru Goy Bahu. Samson did not kill them through direct contact, but through throwing the bone at each other like an arrow. As an Aramaic word for arrow, Geira is very similar to the phrase here, Guruye Gare. Thus, for others following an alternative version of the text, explain that he cut them with the jawbone, commenting on Nazir, or he struck them with it but did not touch them. That's from the Aruch. Did not to remain pure, rather it's derived from here, and he smote 30 men of them and took their garments, Judges 14:19. Since he stripped the clothes off the dead, he must have come into contact with them. The Gemara counted, perhaps he stripped them first and afterward killed them. The Gemara responds, it is written, and he smote and took, in that order, indicating that he first killed them and then he took their clothing. The Gemara asks, perhaps he mortally wounded them and thereby caused them to be in the process of dying. Even according to the opinion that it is prohibited for the Nazirite to touch someone who is dying, it is possible to explain the Gemara here. It does not mean that the Philistines were actually in the final stages of dying when Samson touched them. It is also possible to differentiate between someone who is dying at the hands of a man, someone who is dying from natural causes, and perhaps the Nazirite is prohibited from touching only the latter. It was Tosfot. And then he took their clothes before he died, so that he would not touch their corpses. Rather, it must be concluded that it is learned as a tradition that Samson will become impure from corpses. Gemara Gemirela is learned as a tradition. Tosfot explained that it's a tradition that Samson actually killed the Philistines before removing their garments. Alternatively, the Maharatz Hayut explains that it's a tradition that it's permitted for Samson to become impure from the dead. It's also implied by the Rambam. The Gemara clarifies the halacha taught in the Mishnah, and where is the content of a permanent Nazirite written? Unzir olam heicha kesiv. The basic content of a permanent Nazirite does not require a source. Just as one can undertake a vow of Naziriteship for a particular length of time, he can vow to be a Nazirite forever. Rather, the verse cited by the Gemara said to teach the details of the halakha of this type of Nazirite. It is explained in the commentary on Nazir that the Gemara is asking about the source for the halakha that a permanent Nazirite can cut his hair and bring offerings even while he is a Nazirite. According to Rabbeinu Peres, the Gemara is discussing the fact that a permanent Nazirite may shorten his hair. It's different from a regular Nazirite who may not cut his hair at all during the term of his Naziriteship, and when his term is completed, he must shave off all of his hair. As is taught in the Brayta, Rabbi Huda Nasi says, Absalom was a permanent Nazirite, as stated, and it came to pass the end of 40 years that Absalom said to the king, I pray to you, let me go and pay my vow. Tosfot explained that according to Rabbi Huda Nasi, a generic vow refers to a Nazirite vow, which is especially logical in light of the fact that Absalom grew his hair. Another explanation is that the sage apparently had a tradition that this vow of Absalom's was that of a permanent Nazirite, says Meiri, which I vowed to the Lord in Hebron. The plain meaning of the verse is that he went to Hebron to fulfill his vow. The Gemara in Teruma 14b asks, how could he have gone to Hebron to bring the offerings? The conclusion of the Gemara is that this was during the period when it was permitted to bring offerings on private altars. In 2 Samuel 15:7, and he cut his hair once every 12 months, as is stated, and when he polled his hair, now it was every year's Yomim, and that he polled it because the hair was heavy on him. 2 Samuel 14:26. That's the end of the Daf. I wish you a very good day. Peace in Israel. Thank you for listening. All the best. Bye.